generation Scream Queen is back. MAXXXINE is the alleged final installment in the Ty West / Mia Goth trilogy that has blown my mind since I've seen the first entry, X, in 2022. The story that follows a particular young aspiring actress named MAXXXINE. The movie starts off with an incredible quote at the beginning that says, "Until you're known in my profession as a monster, you are not a star." And that's from Bette Davis herself. Not only does this quote unpack a lot of backstory, heavy layers into the character of MAXXXINE and what she has been through from X to MAXXXINE and then the prequel Pearl in the middle, it also captivates a certain time where a lot of biggest names in Tinseltown at the time were Universal monsters, from Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, and a lot of final girls. Bette Davis being one of the most prolific names of her time. The movie starts off in the 80s where MAXXXINE is trying to put back the tragic past from behind her from the original X movie, and she's trying to make her name into Hollywood. She's highly regarded as an adult film actress, but she has the ambition and dedication to show that she is one of a kind. Not only is Mia Goth phenomenal in this movie, but every supporting cast member is as well. From Bobby Cannavale and Michelle Moynihan, who played two detectives, Kevin Bacon, all the way down to Elizabeth Debicki, who essentially is this great director in Hollywood that is giving MAXXXINE a chance. As MAXXXINE is about to burst onto the Hollywood scene, her past does catch up to haunt her when there is a lurking figure that is essentially trying to take her career down. And this is all happening in the 80s when the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, is tormenting the state of California. While brutal crimes are being committed, the person that is solely targeting MAXXXINE is staging their kills to look reminiscent to the Night Stalker, causing the detectives to be in a frenzy. I know all three of the movies in the trilogy are period pieces. Essentially, we have the first one, X, that has that gritty 70s vibe. A lot of people compared it to an homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is kind of funny because there's one part in the movie MAXXXINE gets a newspaper article from her town in Texas, and she reads it, and the subtitle says the Texas Porn Star Massacre. So it just shows how committed Ty West is as a writer and director to make these connections himself, being like, yeah, the last few years I know what you guys said about the movie, but I mean, it's true. I mean, there's no shame in paying homage and appreciation to movies if you're not carbon copying them. And this movie has very intense and meta dialogue, but in a way that's not meta and at the audience, more self-referential to Ty West as a director and his standpoint on Hollywood and what it takes to make movies, and it's very brilliant. The Night Stalker's killing, MAXXXINE has an impending foe against her, and people are all with the satanic panic thinking that cults are trying to take over and kill and, you know, ruin America, essentially. And all of these ideas are butting against each other as MAXXXINE is desperately trying to push away her past and ignore it completely. Kevin Bacon plays this phenomenal character where he's essentially the private investigator for the person that hired him to go after MAXXXINE, and he is just as diabolical. The aesthetic to this film is phenomenal, and I'm not even a huge kiss ass for the 80s aesthetic. I think it's cool and charming, but the way he directed this movie, so gritty, colorful, and dark, that contrast at the same time, he really made a movie that felt like it was genuinely from the 80s. It's not like, oh, they put a filter on that, oh, look what they did. This movie has a great aesthetic and vibe, and I don't use those words lightly. And you can tell that Ty West, the director of this movie, is just a cinemaphile, film buff expert. There's this one subtle scene too where MAXXXINE's smoking a cigarette and she puts it out and stubs it on the ground, which was on the Hollywood Walk of Stars, or whatever it's called. She puts it out on Theda Bara's star, and if you know anything about Theda Bara, she was one of the most popular actresses of the silent era, a sex symbol amongst many. Her femme fatale vibe earned her the nickname The Vamp, so it almost kind of showed that MAXXXINE is very heavily influenced by that particular celebrity. And from here I want to get into a few spoilers, so if you're not ready for it, skip to the end of the video. If you watch the first two movies, it is blatantly clear who the killer is, and I think Ty West does an amazing job for newcomers to the franchise to not be hit with the reveal, and for the people that have been paying attention to this franchise for so long to be satisfied. And it's in the writing and dialogue. For example, there's this one scene with the detectives, and the detective says he finds a body that has something prodded onto him, and he says, "Wow, that looks like a cattle prod." And as they show little moments with the killer, they only show his black gloves and shadows of him, and you can show he's ragingly violent and has a personal infliction towards MAXXXINE herself. And there's this one brutal scene where he even kills someone close to her, and he sees a crucifix earring hanging out of the corpse's body, and he rips it off. And I'm gonna be real with you guys, I'm gonna tell you now, double spoiler, that the killer ends up being her father, and they do a brilliant job with it because obviously it makes sense how extreme he is, and also with the irony of the fact during the satanic panic and during the entire fucking 80s, people were scared that demon worshippers and the devil was real, and the whole time her father, who's a very heavily religious man, happens to be the monster after all. And from start to finish, this movie's just phenomenal. Like, I was watching one review from one of my personal favorite YouTubers, and he just kind of low-key roasted this movie, and it's like, people are so fascinated with critiquing movies and expecting too much and having false ideas about it, that this movie, as a standalone feature, from production quality to writing and directing and acting, is just a tour de force, and it's just a phenomenal movie. There are some brutal kills in there. The pacing is interesting. Like I said, if you're a newcomer to the franchise, the mystery is there. It entrenches the character of Maxine so much so. Like, there's one specific part where she is being tormented by her past from X when she killed the old lady Pearl, and there's one scene where she's getting prosthetic makeup put on her and she's left alone to think about it, and that torments her. And then there's a scene where she sees Pearl's ghost essentially looking out the window of the Bates Motel.
Ty West and Mia Goth absolutely poured their hearts into this trilogy, and not only did they deliberately pace each film and then tie it together flawlessly, the fact that they showed, Ty West's career as a director with all his certain opinions and takes on filmmaking, and how he showed all these little nuggets of gold from each time period of how he has all this film knowledge is just so brilliant. And while they were paying homage to the horror genre, they happened to create one of the most iconic characters of all time, and the fact that they were able to pull this off is amazing, because they respected horror, but they also made their own passionate, iconic moment.
So this movie is just action-packed. It's a great character piece of Maxine, and Ty West and Mia Goth are just so phenomenal together, and they should do more movies together, and they should be appreciated, because sometimes movies, let alone trilogies, don't come along like this. So would I say that this X trilogy is a masterpiece? Absolutely. Alright guys, that's a review. Subscribe, give me a thumber, hit that ding-a-ling button, or else I'm telling you, hey, it's me, I'm here. And I'm gonna say it one time for the one time and two time for the O's. Give me a hell yeah for horror.
Maxine, what are you hiding?